Okay, so I finally figured out if I could go back in time to the beginning of my last abusive relationship, what I would do differently as soon as the trust issue started coming up, I would have said, oh, okay, that's what we're dealing with here. And I would have stepped back and ended things at that point. So what had happened was, this person was very, very nervous about me cheating. Very nervous that I could be cheating. Very nervous that I would meet somebody and leave him. And I thought, oh, I'm not a cheater. It's not a problem. I'm not gonna meet somebody else and leave them. That's not how I roll. And what I didn't recognize, what I didn't realize back then, is that what that indicated was his paradigm, sort of his framework for viewing the world or our relationship specifically or whatever it was. For whatever reason, he was coming from a place of mistrust. And because I felt that those reasons weren't real, I thought, oh, he's just being insecure. I'll show him and then he'll feel secure and that'll fix that. That is not what had happened. It does not work that way. Now that I have some, let's say, more experience under my belt, I'm a little bit older, I've finally learned, that when somebody has a paradigm, that you can't change their paradigm. You can't change their mind. That's something that we'd have to do on their own. And you just saying, oh, no, that's not correct. This paradigm's wrong. You can have a different one. That's not how it goes. So what a lot of people do is they show up for, let's say, this non-trusting partner, and they, think, oh, they'll change their mind. And what they don't realize is that it's pending. They've never completed an analysis that you're trustworthy. It's more like, oh, they haven't shown themselves to be untrustworthy yet. Those are two very different things, right? So if somebody is untrusting for whatever reason, that means they're waiting to see you not be trustworthy. Versus, if you're coming from a healthier perspective, you sort of, people have opportunities to build trust with you. So you're not off the bat going, oh, I'm looking out for ways that you're not trustworthy, but it's more like, oh, I'm giving you opportunities here to be trustworthy, to show up and to have your actions be in line with what you say. And, and then that's how the trust is built. So it's not necessarily giving people trust up front, but it's also not looking for confirmation bias. Oh, most people are untrustworthy, so therefore I'm looking for signs that I'm untrustworthy. Relationships are hard. Let me just... Okay, that actually was a really important phone call, and I'm glad I picked it up because somebody is in a situation where they're being manipulated by the parent of their child. And that is a hard thing for people who don't necessarily know what a legal situation is. So just PSA, if you ever have questions, contact an attorney. Do what you got to do. Get an initial conversation, initial consultation. If it involves your kids, you need to ASAP talk to an attorney. Do not leave things to chance. Do not hope something's going to work out. That resource is there. Anyway, so just to kind of wrap it back up, if you are dealing with somebody whose paradigm is one of mistrust, one of, most people cheat, which is, my ex did tell me that. He's like, well, most people cheat. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not most people. I'm not people. There's nothing I have done to show you that I'm a cheater. But you can't, there's that axiom. You can't reason a person out of a position they have reasoned themselves into. That's a thing that they got to do on the inside. And there is no amount of good trustworthy behavior on our part that can change that. And the other thing too is we got to recognize if we are starting to think, oh, I want to change someone's perspective. I want to change someone's opinion. I want to change someone's idea, whatever. We're getting into very murky territory, right? That can be controlling. It also doesn't recognize that that's not a thing that we can do. Personally, I file it under the Beauty and the Beast trope, which is Beauty and the Beastess. She is so pure of heart, so good, so loving that the beast finally turns into a man, and he, changes. He's no longer a monster. Her love has transformed him. And, unfortunately, that dynamic is often at play in an abuse dynamic. So, we do not want to approach a relationship thinking, oh, I'll be so trustworthy. I'll be so good. He'll recognize I'm not like those other people, and I'll change his mind. Like, no. We don't want to change nobody's mind. That's not a thing we want to do. They're their own person. They get to have their own opinions and perspectives, and that's a signal to us. Oh, okay, we're going to have problems. I need to detach emotionally from this person. This is not a safe person for me to date. And that's hard. And it's harder if we've rushed way into a relationship very fast because of feelings. I'm not gonna lie, I've been there, but that's why boundaries are such a big topic. Like in terms of recovering from abuse, or learning how to interact with people in a health and safe way, because our boundaries help protect us, so we don't rush into those situations. I'm talking from experience. I've definitely been that person who's been all about the feelings, and then suddenly I'm like, what's going on? This isn't what I signed up for, but then my heart's engaged, and I talk a lot on the subreddit about how it's our virtues that trap us, not our vices. So, we get credit to Isendai. we get to this point where we're like, well, I love this person. You don't give up on people that you love. I love them for, if I love them, they must be a good person. And if we don't have an adaptive model of who this person is, as they maybe slide into some non-optimal, toxic, abusive, whatever behaviors, and we don't adapt our model, then we have this idea of them from the beginning. It's not reflective of reality of what's happening in the moment. I recognize that I've done that with my son. So he'd be like 4 months old, and there's certain benchmarks that kids have to meet at certain ages, and there's certain ways you interact with them. And so like a month or two would go by, which for an adult is, you snap your fingers and it's 2 months later. But when you're a baby, that's such a long period of time. Time is super relative. At least the experience of it is. Anyway, so I would realize like, oh man, he's 6 months old now. Like he's cognitively in a different stage. We are meeting different benchmarks. I need to adjust where I'm at mentally. 6 months we can start doing food and whatever. And so I noticed throughout his childhood, my mental model of who he was always kind of lagging behind where he was actually at. It would take me a bit to go, oh, he's advanced, or he's moved on from this stage or whatever it is. And so we don't want to run into that with a partner. We don't want to get fixed in our mind. This is a good person. This is someone I can trust, whatever it is, because people change, or people grow, or people have life crises or ego crises or whatever. And so if we're not, having an adaptive model of like who's in front of us, then we might not be accurately interpreting reality. So we want it. There's that saying, I want to say it's Maya Angelou, but when people show you who they are, like believe them. The reason we don't believe them is because we have this idea of who they are that's not matching their behaviors. And we're like, no, but I know they're this way. And we're trying to make the two merge by getting them to change their mind or getting them to change their behavior. Because we're like, I know you're this person. And it's like, let's be respect. This is they are their own person. They don't technically have to, as long as Obviously, there are nuances. But if you're starting to see red flags, instead of trying to make them fix their red flags, go, oh, okay, these red flags are here for a reason. You know? That means it's time for me to back off. Anyway, this PSA has been brought to you by Enva, and I'll talk to you next time.